Hey there, guys. I want to welcome you to Wednesday's edition of Journey Through the Gospels. And today we are in John 18. You know, it's so easy when you're in the comfort of your own home and you're sitting in your recliner and sitting there. It's real easy for us to predict what we would do in a pressure situation, isn't it? I mean, it's easy for us to play armchair quarterback, and watch events of things happening in the world and say, boy, if that would have been me, I would have done that. Boy, if that would have happened to me, I would have said that, or I would have done this. And it's so easy for us to make those decisions when we're not in that situation. And many times when we get in those situations, we may not act the way that we said that we would act, because it's easier to do it when you're not in that situation. I've heard a quote that says that pressure doesn't create character, it reveals it. I mean, that's true. When you're in those pressure situations, it reveals something in you. Sometimes it reveals a strong character and it reveals good things, and then sometimes it reveals flaws in your character. You didn't even know that they were there. In John chapter 18, we see something happen to Peter that Jesus actually predicted back in Mark chapter 14. I'm going to read what happens in Mark 14 before we get to John 18. And it's when Jesus is predicting Peter's denial of him. And Jesus said, "You will all fall away," Jesus told him, "for it is written, I will strike the shepherd and the sheep will be scattered. But after I have risen, I will go ahead of you into Galilee." And Peter declared, "Even if all fall away, I will not." "I tell you the truth," Jesus answered. "Today, yes, tonight, before the rooster crows twice, you yourself will disown me 3 times. But Peter insisted emphatically, "Even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you." And all the others said the same. I mean, again, it's so easy to say, "Oh, I would never do that," when you're not in that situation. That's what Peter did. Jesus says, "You're going to deny me 3 times." And Peter says, "I will never do that." Fast forward just a few hours later, and in John 18, we read this, verses 15 to 18, says, Simon Peter and another disciple were following Jesus. And this is after Jesus has been arrested. Because this disciple was known to the high priest, he went with Jesus into the high priest's courtyard. But Peter had to wait outside at the door. The other disciple, who was known to the high priest, came back, spoke to the girl on duty there, and brought Peter in. "You are not one of his disciples, are you?" the girl at the door asked Peter. He replied, "I am not." It was cold, and the servants and officials stood around a fire and had made to keep warm. Peter also was standing with them, warming himself. "You were with him, right?" "I am not one of his disciples." And then we fast forward a little bit more, verse 25. As Simon Peter stood warming himself, he was asked, "You are not one of his disciples, are you?" He denied it, saying, "I am not." And one of the high priest's servants, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, challenged him, "Didn't I see you with him in the olive grove?" And again Peter denied it. And at that moment, a rooster began to crow. So 3 times Peter denies that he's one of Jesus' followers. Just a few hours earlier, sitting after dinner, after the Last Supper, sitting around the table, and Jesus says, "You are all going to deny me." And Peter says, "I will never deny you, Jesus. Even if I have to die for you, I'm never going to deny you." And then just a few hours later, people say, "Aren't you one of his followers? Aren't you one of his disciples?" "Oh, no, that's not me. That's not me." It's so easy for us to be confident when we're not in the pressure situation. But the pressure situation, again, reveals character. Peter had some character flaws. I mean, we all have character flaws. Some are greater than others, but we all have those. The pressure in this situation revealed some flaws in Peter's character. Now, the good thing is that the story didn't end there. And we're going to see on Friday's edition that Jesus gives Peter a second chance. And I mean, Peter could have just given up. Peter could have just gone, "Boy, I've denied Jesus, and it's over for me." And he could have ran off and we could have never heard of Peter ever again, but he didn't do that. And we'll find out that Peter actually, he learned from his experience and would go on to be the first and probably one of the greatest church leaders in history. And the message is this, is that, you know what, when we get in those pressure situations and they reveal a character flaw in us, let it be like Peter, let it reveal that flaw, and then let God help us grow, to grow in that situation. It reveals flaws, but God can help us correct those if we'll allow Him. And so allow God to help you in those pressure situations. When they reveal those flaws, let God help you fix those and grow in those areas. That's going to do it for today. Tomorrow we're going to be in John 19. See you tomorrow.